Hi folks, first of all, sorry if I'm dressed like a ballerina, but I'm ready to go on the mountain in the snow, so in 10 minutes I will leave the apartment. But before that I wanted to discuss something that I just saw today, and it's about the most sold cameras and lenses of 2023 according to Mapcamera. Mapcamera is a very large Japanese store, something like BH Photo or Amazon, and they sell a huge quantity of photographic gear. So it's very interesting to see what the Japanese actually like to buy in 2023, and we are going to walk through the list of the best 10 selling lenses, the best 10 selling cameras. Let's kick off with the lenses. The 10th most sold lens was the 50mm 1.4 GM. The 9th most sold lens was the Sony 24-70mm 2.8 GM2. The 8th most sold lens was the Nikon Z26mm 2.8. The 7th most sold lens was the Sigma 1850mm for Fuji. The 6th most sold lens was the Canon RF 50mm 1.8 STM. The 5th most sold lens was the Tamron 28 200mm for Sony. The 4th most sold lens was the 20-70mm 4.0 from Sony. The 3rd most sold lens was the Nikon 180 600mm lens. The 2nd most sold lens was the Tamron 28 75mm for Sony. And the most sold lens of 2023 was the Nikon 24 120mm 4.0. So what can we learn from that ranking? First of all, standard zoom lenses are the most sold lenses as expected. I'm glad to see that the Sony 20-70mm did well. I'm not surprised to see that the Tamron 28-75mm was one of the best selling lenses. And overall I'm also surprised to see that Canon didn't sell that well, that the battle is really between Nikon and Sony, and all others are really far behind. Now let's move on to the cameras. The 10th most sold camera was the Fuji X-T5. The 9th most sold camera was the Lumix S5 II. The 8th best selling camera was the Fuji X-S10. The 7th best selling camera was the Ricoh GR3X. The 6th best selling camera was the A7C II. The 5th best selling camera was the A7 IV. The 4th best selling camera was the Sony A7R5. The 3rd best selling camera was the Nikon ZF. The 2nd best selling camera was the Canon R6 II, and the best-selling camera was the Nikon Z8. So what's my opinion about that ranking? First of all, I'm not surprised to see that the Nikon Z8 is on top. I think this is actually the best camera in terms of balance and features in the high-end segment. And when it comes to the lower end full frame segment, I think the Lumix S5 II is probably the best model. I'm also not surprised to see that the Nikon ZF did sell well. Also, lesson probably for Sony and other manufacturers is that vintage cameras do sell well. So good looking cameras are appreciated, at least in Japan. I think also this is true for Europe and US. Probably the numbers will be different because Japanese people are more into more compact cameras and more vintage cameras, but I think it will not change much if you look at European and American sales. Sadly, we don't have those kind of numbers from our Western photographic stores. Would be nice to see how the sales number are there, but one thing that I know is that Nikon did really well with the Z8 and also with the latest ZFs. So I hope, me as a Sony user, that Sony will one day make a vintage camera, seeing that those cameras are selling well. Also the Fuji camera is selling well, and I think Canon will come out with a vintage camera probably in 2024. So I hope Sony doesn't miss the train, but let's see. For now, I didn't get any rumor about Sony making some sort of vintage model. When it comes to the Z8, it would be nice if Sony would lower the price of the A1 so that it is closer to the Z8 pricing. But in the 3 years we had the A1, there was not one time any kind of offer, cashback on the A1. I don't know if Sony plans to do something in 2024. We know there is a big firmware update coming in late February for the A1. Would be nice if they would give us couple of new features, but also nice discount on the camera would make sense for me. Regarding the A1 II, at best we're getting this camera in November 2024, but could be also January 2025. And but for now I think Sony doesn't feel a real pressure to lower the prices, because if you look at the ecosystem, it's still a very strong mirrorless, probably the best mirrorless system as of now, because you have a ton of lenses, a ton of option of cameras. But if Nikon keeps doing well, or also the Lumix or the L-mount system is growing, then Sony is probably forced to change some strategy regarding the pricing And again, I repeat, they should release also some more differentiated model, not just A7 kind of looking cameras all the time for 10 years now. Would be nice to get something different. That's my opinion. I think design matters. But yeah, let's see. What do you think about this ranking? Is it expected for you? Do you have some other comment about this? Maybe you have noticed some other nice things that I didn't talk about. Please comment below this video if you want to share something. Like this video to help me in the YouTube algorithm. And subscribe, of course, if you don't want to miss any of the upcoming rumors. There are many rumors coming very soon. See you soon, folks.